Okay, so let us begin the 25th of the month of Tammuz. Hayom Yom. Two short, pungent ideas based on the following. There are two very characteristic expressions in Hasidus about a Jew. One, a Jew recognizes godliness and senses the supernatural, the above seichel, the deeper than seichel. A Jew has a gefühl, a feel for this. He needs no proofs for this, that God is beyond. In fact, that's the whole topic of Shayichud Emunah. That's the level we call Emunah, Emunah Hashem. Secondly, a Jew neither wants to nor is able to be sundered from godliness. He says, the truth is that these two expressions are one and the same. One, a Jew recognizes godliness and senses the higher than natural, and that's why the Jew neither wants to nor can be torn away from godliness. It's deep, deep, deep. As is Tshuva, deep, deep, deep. Tshuva Hey, right? Restore the Hey. The first Hey, the Yud K, Tshuva iloh, that's called a higher level of Tshuva. Tshuva Tato, the lower level, which is Malchus. Beginning a new chapter, chapter 9. Yeah, chapter 9 in Lessons in Tanya is on page 1090. And in Akuti Morim, it's over here. Over here is where? Wherever I have my bookmark. It's in the right place. Yeah. Parak 9, page 196. Brief recap. Tshuva, right? Lashon Tashuv, Hey. You break it apart, Tashuv, Hey. Return, restore the Hey. Well, there are two Heys. The lower Hey is Malchus. This is a movement of the heart primarily to ask for mercy, to realize that one has separated oneself from the King Melech Ha'olam, the King of the world, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, the King of all the angels. One has separated oneself from the King and has a sincere desire to return to the King and ask the King for mercy to please help him or her come back into the close relationship that exists between him and Hashem, but more now coming on to the level of father and son, right? Banim atem laHashem alekechem. In addition to Hashem's kingliness over all of creation, we particularly have a relationship of a father to a child, a parent to a child. And so we want to have a deeper relationship. And the deeper relationship, he told us yesterday, which is going to be expressly identified as Tshuva iloh, comes through Bina. We looked at the word Bina, right? Bina, Bez, Nun, right? We'll skip the Yud for a minute. Bez, Nun is the child of, now come back to the Yud K. Then Yud K. To arouse our sense of parent-child relationship, of father and child. So to explain this, begins this chapter Tes. The explanation primarily of Yehuda iloh. Biradinyan. To explain this thing, as is written in the Holy Zohar, in the Tikkunim, Bekama Makaimos, in the section called the Tikkunim, in many places. What does it say there? It says, the Bina, Ihu Tshuva iloh. Bina is Tshuva iloh. The Eim Revetzes al Afruchim. And he takes a pasuk, which is, it's the mother who is crouching over on her eggs, hatching the eggs. That's the mashal here. Coming from the egg state to being hatched out of the egg and now developing a tangible relationship with the parent. Now remember, this is Bina, right? The Zohar, by the way, doesn't bring this here, but it's, I think, very useful. The Zohar says, Bina Liba. Bina is connected with the heart. Ubo halev mevin, and it brings the heart to understanding. Bina, through das, connects with all the midos. So we're taking this initial feeling of regret and desire to return, and now we're implementing it. Bina. We're using our Bina, and we'll see how we acquire this Bina, how we put this Bina into action. But it's Bina. Hashem, one meditates, contemplates, comprehends in the depths, the Amkas Hadas, in the depths of one's awareness. And there comes birthing, there's a birth from this spirit of understanding. It gives birth to the the midos of love and fear as they are yet still embodied in the mind, right? Which we've learned, I think, more than once, that all the midos are inter-included with each other. That's number one. And also, all the midos are primordial in God's very essence. And so they begin really deeper than God's mind. But God's mind is his conscious awakening. And we connect with this in the with our midos of love and fear as they are still inter-included in our Bina. And this is a little bit of a descent. Now it comes in a literally a tasty way, into our das. Das is one of the meanings of das is hiskashvus. We now tie our mind, kesher. We tie our mind to our open emotions. So our open emotions are now based on Bina. We'll see in a minute what's the content of that Bina. As it says, it said you should love Hashem your God. So this is a big realization, a realization that God is your life. And therefore, this is the quality of life depends on what you eat and what you breathe, the air you breathe, the food you eat, the way you behave. So now we're putting this into action, that one has to breathe it, one has to think it, one has to act it. Because we've realized this is God is my life, and in order to experience that, I have to align myself with godliness. And it's not sufficient, the natural love, which we just spoke about in Hayom Yom, the natural love that a Jew has, that he's connected or she's connected with the supra-rational, right? There has to be bringing that into action. Similar, that's love. Also with fear, the other side. Upachad, or trembling, or boisha, or feeling of openness and humility. Ukaneda, and all of these midos, right? Feeling the love, feeling the awe, becoming humble, opening oneself up. So that's called the mother on the chicks, because a new awareness is about to be hatched. So the root of this love is davkas rucha berucha. The root of the love is clinging breath to breath, or spirit to spirit. Because if he uses the mashal in Shir Hashirim from breath to breath, Ishkini in the Shichos Piho, he kisses me with the kisses of my mouth. There's now a ruach, a breath being infused in me, a breath of love and connection. Tanya, as is known. And on this it says, nefesh, nefisha, right, blowing, breathing. Shehem hem kol helking nefesh. This involves now all the parts of the soul, seichel umidus, and the intellect and one's understanding. So we're now going down in the chain. The nefesh. Remember, the nefesh is that part of the soul which is connected with, directly with, and connects with, and enlivens the body. And the body then gets aroused in its midos, and its three levushim, seichel, machshava, dibur, ma'aseh. Machshava, dibur, ma'aseh, as he says. So this is now holistic engagement with Hashem. L'dafke kula, to cling all of your limbs and organs. Boy, in Hashem Yisborach, may he be blessed. Nahainu hamidas v'midaisei Yisborach, his midos and your midos. Just as he is kind, you should be kind. Just as he is racham, you should be racham, etc., etc. And haseichel, the intellect, right? B'sichlei, in his intellect, and his chokhmasa yisborach, and his wisdom. And where will you find his mind and his wisdom? That's concentration in an occupation, really occupying oneself with Torah. Because the Raisim and Chokhmah Nafkin. Zohar says that the Torah is drawn from God's Chokhmah. L'chein hamashava, not just the seichel, the midos and the seichel, but also now one's garments. Shavtai was his border, his blessed thought, the hadibur, and his blessed speech. The Devar Hashem zu halach. And what's his blessed speech? His speech is where he articulates the halacha. The pasuk says, "You should put my words in your mouth." And the words which I have placed in your mouth when I gave you the Torah. That's much. So we have seichel, midos, machshava, dibur, and last but not least, in fact, last but most, hamasa. Hamasa hatzedakah. That's the general mitzvah, right? The mitzvah, we've learned this before, and you get us earlier on, that tzedakah is called bar mitzvah. Because mitzvah is reaching out to someone, is connection. And with tzedakah, that's the generality of connecting with another person and helping to give and sustain another person, to lift up the ruach shfolim, the spirit of those who are fallen. As is written, as it says, these are the 6 midos, right? Midos, seichel, midos, machshava, dibur, and ma'aseh. This is Tshuva law, putting into action the feeling of regret that you had and the asking for Hashem's mercy that you started with. And this is clinging, spirit to spirit, with a complete clinginess and a complete unity, which is from one's love of Hashem. And since he's using this for example, since you made a blemish in that which has to do with the immorality, by bringing forth seed in vain, or without, and he doesn't have to mention other kinds of immoral acts, which have been forbidden either from the written Torah or from the oral Torah. And there's an interesting Hazal that says, stricter are the words of the sages than word of Torah, because the words of the sages are a fence around the Torah, and if you don't obey the fence, you'll fall into the pit. So it's very important that when the signal says "don't walk," you don't walk, because if you do walk, God forbid, you could get hit by a car. So there's a seriousness about words of divrei seifim. So when you do these sins, particularly the one that we're talking about having to do with immorality and zera levatala, the zera, the seed, where does it start? It starts in the brain. So when one does that particular avera, is over that avera, poigim b'moyach, you actually blemish your brain. And therefore, tikune, what's the tikkun? If you have a blemish in your brain, to clean it with an infusion of health and life in your brain, which is the Torah and its wisdom, the Torah which is drawn from God's wisdom. It's a section of the Midrash Rabbah. Adam over Aveira, this is what it says, a person who transgresses an Aveira, and is chayav misa, lemokam, and in front of the king, lemokam, we call him God, the place, he has an obligation of death. Mayasa, what should he do in order to learn? If he's talking about learning, if it's your custom to learn 1 or 2 parakim one or two parakim. So, excuse me. If it's your nature to read, likra beis dafim, to read two. The shan is perak echad yishno beis parachim. So you learn one and now you learn two. V'hainu kamashal hevel hanifsak, like the metaphor that we had before. Remember of the rope. If you break one strand, so you can heal it. You can re-strand the rope. And if one strand or two strands is broken, you can heal it. So similarly in the physical rope, so it is in the rope which the pasuk says, Yaakov, a rope is his inheritance. The rope is, remember, 613 strands of this hemp rope, this woven rope. And even a small nick can take one strand out. And multiplication is going to weaken it, so you just turn it around. If you weakened it, then begin to strengthen it, either in your learning or your midah, your machshava, dibur, ma'aseh, your three garments. On the commercial, that's the mashal of the rope where one is split, is interrupted, cut. And you come back and you tie it together. And he says, in the place where you tie it together, shebamakim hakesher, hu kafel umahufel. It's now redoubled. It's even stronger. Right? Tshuva creates a stronger relationship with Hashem than the relationship that existed before you went away and came back. Because Tshuva has a power of regret, the power of regret, the power of brokenness, the power of crushing your heart, and through that coming back brings you back with a power that didn't exist before. And so it is in the rope. It says, it says with kindness and with truth. These are the midos, and this is Torah, truth. Ein emes ela Torah. One will be forgiven. One sin will be forgiven. The ein emes ela Torah, and it says, as he says, there's no truth except for Torah. So that's the way to but think about this a bit. The notion of going away from Hashem or coming close to Hashem begins with one's thoughts. It may be precedented by a midah, a feeling, but then you make a decision. And decisioning is part of the brain. And if you make a decision, so decision in itself, the word in English, decisive, right? There's a power to it. It's decisive. And so when you start with that and make a decisive movement toward Hashem, starting with the head, and doing it with the head means go to the head, go to the Godhead, go to God's Chokhmah and His wisdom. So then you've started opening a channel all the way down through all the other body parts and all through your thought, speech, and action. With kindness and with truth, one's sins are forgiven. The ein emes ela Torah, and there's no truth except Torah. The oven Beis Eli, and the sin of Beis Eli. Beis Eli was a high priest, and his sons perverted the priesthood a little. They took the choice meats and they started eating themselves. So this became the sin of the house of Beis Eli. Other things as well. This became known as the sin of that house of priesthood. Bezevach u'mincha, and what they did with the slaughterings and the offerings, they took them personally for their own use. With the ene miskapa, so they're not atoned. Avo miskapa b'Torah. How do you get forgiven from that? How do you start to get the process? Avo miskapa b'Torah. One is forgiven b'Torah v'gamilas hasodim, Torah, avoda, u'gamilas hasodim. He skips avoda here. But, okay, we won't put it in. But avoid, of course, is davening. But he's speaking about Torah and good deeds. Torah and deeds. Learning, feeding your head with what your head needs to hear, and putting that into action. And that's called Tshuva. The Isa B'Sai Perakama, the Rosh Hashanah, as in the first parak of the Gemara Rosh Hashanah. So that's the distinction between Tshuva Torah which begins with a broken heart, regret. That's the word of the Rambam. Rambam says he doesn't use this word so much here. He does a little. But the beginning of Tshuva is regret over the past. And then in Rambam's next after regret over the past, is decision ala over, decision ala on the future. Decision on the future. And here comes embodying, realizing, stepping into the future through one's machshava, divrei, and ma'aseh. That's restoring the relationship that existed in the first place. That's Tshuva iloh, the higher hay, which starts with bina, understanding. Okay. Questions? Comments?
I just wanted to point out one thing. I think when you read is, from the Tanya Divrei Eliyahu, like if you know that you really have a lot to do tshuva for, it says the word is ma ya'aseh v'yichiyeh. What should you do
Live.
in order to live?
Live, right.
In
That's
order
correct.
to live. Mamish, it's part of recognizing Hashem in your life.
Right.
And if you want to get closer to Hashem, it says what's the closest thing you can do to get closer to Hashem is basically learn Torah.
Yeah.
And that's a broad, in a way, it's a broad category. It doesn't mean just doing the chitas or chumash or something, but it also means.
He said Ian b'Torah. Ian embodies not only breadth but depth in the Torah as well. Yeah.
Right. But it's also from all of your koiches. It's using all of your koiches to do. Thought, speech, and deed.
Yes.
Kavana, and also the kavana here is important. I'll give you that one. The kavana is important. That you know what you're doing is Torah.
It's funny you say that because we have this discussion,
I know. Right.
How important is kavana? It's important, right? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I also I was also thinking of this as we learned that we learn that what we do matters. Like we learned that because we learned about how our neshama is from a very holy place. So what we do matters. But at the same time, now we're learning that what we do has to be done in a way that it matters to us. And tshuva, most of the time when they talk about tshuva, they talk about regret for things done wrong. Right. And this tshuva is to strive to serve Hashem with greater depths, which is constant growth.
Just remember, though, that most people talk about regret for doing things wrong. That is tshuva tata. That is the beginning. That's the whole thing. And then we go on to this part. Yes.
It's just a beautiful way to live.
It sure is. It sure is. It's the way God intended us to live. Tshuva Hashem. And it's, by the way, it's implicit in what you're saying. It's constant. Because no matter how far that you're dealing with a relationship with something infinite, right? So no matter where you've moved on the spectrum, there's always more to go, which could be taken negatively. When will I ever get there? But it could be taken very positively that I'm always getting somewhere. And I'm getting deeper and deeper, closer and closer to the essence of who I really am.
Just so we don't overlook it, this is the place, I think it was Elisheva that wanted to know, where does it say that you make a double knot, it gets you closer, it gets you thicker. Yeah. This is it.
Right there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. See you tomorrow in your session.
Thank you.
Thank you.